Just what the heck? We'll put that on. All right. So check it out. The past couple of days, I've kind of gone hard on atheists on Facebook, and some people want to know why. Now, let me point this out: that my the post that people responded to, because I did one where I said, if you're an atheist, just self-delete yourself from my Facebook, okay? And that one didn't get a lot of traction, but the following day I came back and said, um, yesterday I put this post up asking atheists to self-delete, and they haven't done it. And so that one got a lot of traction. It's got dozens and dozens of comments on it. Last I knew, it was right around 40. Uh, and a lot of people were angry about it. So let me point this out. Now, if I tell you, get out of my place, get out of my unit, my apartment, then sure, there's some tension there, but it's not disrespectful. Telling you to get out is not disrespectful. It's my place. I can tell you to get out, right? And you have to obey, right? Well, telling you get off my Facebook if you're an atheist is in the same vein. In and of itself, it's not disrespectful. There's tension there, just like there's tension if I'm telling you, get out of my place. Um, but there's a big difference between there being tension in the command and actually being disrespectful. But there were people who got in their feelings. Uh, oh, you don't like atheists? What's wrong with you? And some went to cursing and hurling insults. Okay, and if they did that, I responded in kind. If they simply said, why is it, what's your stance? Why are you saying that? Then I answered their question without cursing them, without insulting them. But if they used curses and insults with me, then I responded in kind. I I gave them what they gave me. Okay, but anyway, so like I said, that post has gotten a lot of traction, and a lot of it has to do with anger. And there were those who just said, okay, I'm going to delete myself, goodbye, and I was cool with that, and in those instances, I didn't go at them with any sort of sharp remarks. But anyway, something's coming across my screen here. All right. So what do I hold against atheists? Well, first, let me take you to a more general concern that I've held for many years, which is that our society has become too emotionalized, too irrational. People have all these knee-jerk emotional reactions. I mean, just look at the school board meetings around critical race theory being taught, and how parents are getting emotional and misbehaving, and police having to be called in to deal with the situation because people feel so strongly about CRT. And you know I can deal with somebody disagreeing with me on CRT, but what I'm talking about here is the emotional reaction, and how our society, we have just gotten to a place where we can't really reason anymore, and people just get in their feelings. And even when they should be able to just say why they have this or that stance, or they should be able to just calmly walk away and say, okay, well, you don't want to deal with my type because I'm an atheist, because I hold a certain stance on CRT or whatever, I'm out, and so You start out having a disagreement about such and such an issue, such as atheism or CRT, but then the way that you act during that exchange uh, says some even worse things about you. And so now your stance on CRT, atheism, or anything else is not even the central issue anymore, but your whole emotional mannerism is the issue now. And so I personally can't stand the emotionalism in our society. And let me put it like this, I'm a firm supporter of gender equality, and there are some issues there when it comes to gender equality and my support for it, and how that I might end up getting in some sort of trouble because of my support for gender equality. But that said, even though I do support gender equality, uh, I also do believe that for pretty much all of my life, I can think back to when I was about 8 years old, uh, hearing things like men need to get in touch with their feminine side, men need to be more emotional, men need to be more sensitive, men need to make themselves vulnerable, and then later on, there was this issue where women began to say, "Oh, men compartmentalize everything, so they don't like a man's conceptual thought, that part of him that transcends his rationale, is another step up above his rational thought." And but that's getting into what I believe about the mind. But anyway, so these sorts of things have gone on for decades. I'm 52. I'll be 53 in February, in just under 2 months. Okay, and so and in case you see this video, years from now, today is December 27th, 2021. I'll be 53 on February 15th, 2022. Uh, but anyway, so I do believe that these decades of women basically telling men how to be emotional, and this stuff where the man comes home from work and the woman begins to explain a problem that took place that day. Guy, because he loves her, decides to jump in and say, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Let's fix it. And then women now have this advice going on of don't solve it, just listen. The women just want to be heard. And just a lot of ways in which women have instructed men on how to be emotional and sensitive and to think more like women, and a lot of that effort has basically shut down the man's reasoning process, and men have learned that women basically don't want to hear a man's reasoning. That and men have uh, suppressed their reasoning processes in order to satisfy the women. Okay, and I'm not blaming women, and I'm not even saying that I'm mad at men or women. Not mad at either gender. But here's my thing. My thing is to reach across the aisle and say, okay, since the men are such suckers, and don't know how to stand their ground and say, hey, look, this is what makes sense, and this is what we're going to do because it makes sense. And since the men don't even know how to take a less assertive, less controlling role, and just say, okay, look, you want to do something that doesn't make sense, that I don't agree with, I'm just bowing out. You're on your own. Do you, but don't involve me because it doesn't make enough sense to me. But since men can't seem to do that sort of thing, and they always just want to do whatever it takes to get the girl, and the men's overall thinking has been diminished because they're always suppressing their rationale in order to satisfy women, still as to, as they say, get the girl. Uh, well, that has translated into how society as a whole thinks, and it's hard to create a timeline where you say, okay, this event definitely led to that event, which led to that event. You can prove coincidence, but you can't always prove causation. Okay, like I said, again, you can prove coincidence, but you can't always prove causation. And so anyway, I see where our society has become really irrational and their thinking has become really confused. And now we have people out there who think that Hillary Clinton and some other high-profile people were in the basement of a DC pizza shop, running a child porn and sex ring. And we have people who believe that lizard people actually run the world, and they'll actually speak like they're just so sure of themselves. I've actually run into a few of these people, then there are the chemtrail people who believe that these chemtrails, these white streams of basically frozen air that you see coming out of the backs of airplanes. It comes out hot, of course, but it freezes immediately because when you get that high up, it's really cold. But they think these chemtrails are full of stuff that's meant to alter our minds and all kinds of conspiracy theories floating around. And if you were to go through society and just really get a sampling of how people think, you'd probably find that more than half of Americans believe in at least one conspiracy theory, uh, which is totally unscientific and illogical and so forth. But anyway, our society's thinking has really gone downhill, and even the church isn't thinking well these days. But let me see. So I just have a lot to say, and I didn't make notes this time, and so let me try to get back on track. But yeah. So our people just can't think well, and well, but like I said, I'm not mad at the men. I'm not mad at the women, but I'm reaching across the aisle, the gender aisle, so as to say, okay, ladies, since the men want so much to be able to have a girlfriend, to have a wife, to have sex, well, I'm going to reach out to the women and try to get the women to be rational, try to get the women to think conceptually. And when I say think conceptually, I'm talking about how women complain that men compartmentalize everything, that men juxtapose different occurrences so as to say, hey, what is the general rule that lies between these different occurrences? Why did all situations that started out a certain way end up a certain way? What is the rule of nature, the law of nature that's at work here? What is the law of human thinking and human behavior that's at work here? So men juxtapose things and they compartmentalize things and they try to figure out what is the basic rule that runs across these several situations. What is the general lesson here? And that is a sensible way of thinking. And I kind of caught myself on Thanksgiving Day. I was speaking to a certain woman. I won't call her name. She mentioned to me that she'd been divorced 3 times. I started into a certain line of questioning where I said, well, what drew you to your 3 husbands? And just, oh, let me say this real fast, that if she sees this, she doesn't have to put it out there that I was that woman, okay? But so don't self-proclaim if you don't want to. But anyway, I was like, well, what drew you to your 3 husbands? And she didn't really tell me what drew her to them, but she said, I was not attracted to their appearance. It wasn't about their appearance. I thought she was flirting with me, Like, hey Eric, you're not a good-looking guy, and but you stand a chance. But I didn't really go all the way there with her. I didn't ask her, are you flirting with me? Are you letting me know that I have a chance? but she is someone who I could see myself having a relationship with. I mean, she's got a good head on her shoulders. I'll give her that. She's got a good head on her shoulders. I have let her know that I know that I like how she thinks. But anyway, so it is a sensible way of thinking. Oh, and wait, because I got so many things going through my head right now that I'm trying to get out here. So, but let me go back and finish and say that I did intend on asking more uh, about the three husbands, uh, and I was going to go on to ask her, well, if she had told me what actually drew her to them, I was going to also ask her, well, how did things fall apart? Was there a common denominator in what caused all three marriages to fall apart? Now, when she gave me the answer about how was not attracted to looks, and she didn't actually say what did attract her to them, I didn't pursue the issue further. We moved on to other stuff, uh, and and anyway, but I say that to simply say that it makes sense to juxtapose these different situations and to say, how did they all start? How did they all finish? Are there any commonalities in what happened in the middle of each of these situations? What is the basic lesson that lies between these similar situations? So they're similar in the sense that she got married to three different guys and she got divorced from three different guys. I'm not sure what other similarities exist, if any. Uh, but that's just one example of how I wanted to juxtapose things and compartmentalize things and say, okay, what is the basic lesson here? And I did also want to find out, if there was something uh, different about myself, because I don't know any of these three guys, these three lucky men. And I did want to be able to find out, just conceptually, compartmentally, in a general sense, if the same characteristic of each of these three guys is what caused each of the three marriages to fall apart, and if that characteristic is something that I do not have, and if me having maybe the opposite characteristic uh, would increase my chances, and if I should just kind of flaunt that opposite characteristic, but and as a way of wooing her, if you will. But that's just, like I say, an example of how compartmentalization or conceptualization works. But it carries over into other aspects of life as well. But I know that I started off saying I was going to talk about what I hold against um, atheists, but then I kind of figured I would start with a more general thing, what I hold against our society in general, what I dislike about our society's thinking in general. Um, and I'm going to try not to get into too many different things because this video's already gotten quite long. So let me see. Well, the first thing that comes to my mind when it comes to this whole atheism thing is this. I am a firm believer in God. I don't think God is sweet. I don't think God is any type of pushover. I don't think that God and Jesus are the same being. I think God is a lot harsher than Jesus is. And I've wondered if God might actually be upset and angry about me not pushing away atheists. Yeah, and so that's a thought that's been in the back of my mind for a long time, and it's moved up to the front a number of times. And so when I decided to really hunker down and really force the issue in terms of making people think better, it just occurred to me that that would be a good place to start. So, so my what I have against atheists is really just a subset of what I have against society, uh, and so I decided that when it came to really forcing the issue, pushing the ticket in terms of making people think better, that I would just start there, in part to give honor to God, uh, in part because I worry that he might actually be upset that I have not pushed away the atheists sooner, and that kind of goes to the whole thing about gender equality too, because I don't believe that God supports gender equality, uh, and you see, I have stated my support for gender equality dozens of times. But I do know that the Bible actually puts men over women, and it lays out gender roles and says that women aren't to preach, women aren't to teach or usurp authority over men, and on and on. Okay, but I live in the U.S. and we do recognize equality here. And that doesn't mean that Americana gets put over God's law. God's law is still at the top, you know, and I still have to consider God's law over man's law, uh, and that's just part of any faith. You always believe whatever deity you believe in, you believe that that deity wants you to obey them over any human. I mean, that's just part of religion in general. That's not even specific to Christianity, okay? And by the way, I don't really even call myself a Christian because so many Christians act so crazy. That's one reason, but also because there's they haven't really laid it out well, haven't really explained the scriptures well. Christianity is different from Old Testament faith in God, and so I personally do not consider myself to be a follower of Christ. I consider myself to be a follower of God, the God of the Old Testament, the harsh one. Uh, and no, it's not a matter of choice. I just happen to know some additional things that other people in the church refuse to think about and talk about. And so it would take a long time for me to really explain why it is that I am not supposed to be following Jesus, but I instead am supposed to be following God. Okay, but I'll just let it suffice that I let you know that I don't see myself as being responsible to follow Jesus. I see myself as being responsible to follow God. Okay, but when it comes to gender equality and what God has to say about it, well, I'm like this. So I firmly believe that uh, the main reason, if not the only reason, that God put men over women is because God knows that He gave men the ability to be rational, and He made women emotional beings, and rationale is a more intelligent, more effective way of thinking than emotion is. And I don't give a fuck if that hurts your feelings. It's just the truth. And so, well. Let me check something. And so, if women can show themselves to be irrational, then I can justify seeing them as equals if God were to confront me. Okay, and so I think a lot about if God might confront me about my support for gender equality, and he might say, "Hey, Eric, you know that I, God, don't support gender equality, so why do you?" And when I say, "Well, that's what America is about," you're going to zap the shit out of me, knock me to kingdom come, because that is not a good enough answer, because you never put God's law over, never put human law over God's law. You always put God's law over human law. Okay, and so I can see where God would zap the shit out of me and knock me to kingdom come if I were to say anything about American law and how I had to obey American law in because they make men and women equal. Okay, and so what I can do though is, according to Isaiah 118, where that verse says, "Come, let us reason together, saith the Lord. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be as wool. Though they be crimson, they shall be white as snow." Again, "Come, let us reason together, saith the Lord. Though your sins be as crimson, they shall be as wool. Though they be scarlet, they shall be white as snow." Okay, so based on Isaiah 118, I imagine myself reasoning with God and saying, "Okay, well, I found this, that, and the other woman who seemed to be rational, and maybe they even do one better, and also think conceptually. Maybe they don't just exhibit rationale, which is the ninth sphere of thought in the man's mind. Maybe they actually go up to the 10th and final sphere and exhibit conceptual thought, compartmentalize things, conceptualize things." Okay, uh, and so if I can't get any woman to be rational or to think conceptually, then it's kind of like when God was getting ready to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, and Lot says, "What if I find 50 righteous men?" And God says, "Okay, you find 50 righteous men. I won't destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. I'll spare the cities." I couldn't find 50. And says, "Well, what if I find 20?" God says, "Okay, you find 20. I'll spare the cities." He couldn't find 20. 10, 5, 1. He couldn't find one. And God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, the difference here would be this, that in this instance, by me being the one who supports gender equality, uh, despite knowing that God is against it, God might say to me, "Well, Eric, if you can't find even one rational woman, I'm going to destroy you. The heck with Sodom and Gomorrah. I'm not going to destroy it. I'm not going to destroy the city. I'm going to destroy you, because you supported gender equality. You thought it was because men are rational, and rightly so. And you thought that maybe you can get women to be rational, and you haven't been able to do that, and you can't even find one rational woman, and therefore, you can't justify having disobeyed my law. And since you disobeyed my law without justification, you're toast, Eric." And so I kind of see that one coming. But I see that this video has turned into me talking in a more general sense about what I dislike about our society's thinking. And I've also, of course, said some things about gender equality. And I said a little bit about what I hold against atheists. But I will say this much more about the atheism issue, which was supposed to be the main topic here, and maybe I should use notes next time. So some years ago, I was having a discussion with several other men. We're sitting at a round table, and we're having a very lively but friendly, boisterous discussion about scripture. There was a certain woman named Nakia who was standing nearby, and she says, "You all take the scripture too literally and too seriously." And I obviously heard her, but I didn't respond, and I don't think anybody else responded. Uh, but I did catch her little statement there, and so she just kind of implied that religion is a fairy tale that need not be taken seriously, and that doesn't even respect religion. So atheists want me to respect them, but if you as an atheist have ever thought or said anything like what she said, and you think that people take the scriptures too seriously and too literally, then you're implying that you think that our religion is a fairy tale, but religious people are generally pretty serious about their religion. So when you imply that it's a fairy tale, then we take that as disrespect. So fuck you. Uh, but I'll kind of leave it right there for right now, and listen to this video later on, and then see what else I should have said that I didn't say. But nightly news is getting ready to come on, and I don't like to miss that. I do like NBC. I do like nightly news with Lester Holt. I do like Meet the Press, which is also on NBC on Sunday mornings with Chuck Todd. And so I'm going to sign off right now, and then I may do a second video later on that's more succinct and more focused on what I hold against atheists. But for now, I'll leave it right there. Full stop.